Hey guys, I'm a bit of a mess right now, but it's about 9:13 in the morning and it hasn't quite been 24 hours, but I think I'm ready to start talking about my initial impressions on the 2018 Mac Mini. So it's been living on my desk now since about 2 o'clock yesterday, and I've been using it in place of my Hackintosh now. I've edited a video on it, I've played some games on it, I've done just about everything, and I gotta say, I'm impressed with the i3, but I'm not impressed enough to keep the i3. There's cups very close by, apparently, which is, I love this state so much. For $899, you are getting a lot of Mac for your money. You are getting a full-featured desktop Mac in a tiny package with I/O, actual I/O, a full HDMI, four Thunderbolt 3 ports, two USB-A ports, like I said, full-size HDMI, Ethernet, gigabit, or 10, 100, 1000 regular Ethernet. That's what I did for my model. And 128 gig SSD PCIe flash storage. It's a very good drive, but the 128 gigabyte version is severely limited in terms of write speeds. Read speeds are still about the same 2.5 gigabytes per second that we've been seeing on the MacBook Pros lately, including my 2016 that I'm recording this on right now. But write speeds are only in the neighborhood of about 750 to 800 megabytes per second, which, ooh, I know, so slow, right? It's still blazing fast PCIe SSD, just slower than the MacBooks. And I suspect that upgrading to 256 gigs will get you performance more closer to what you're used to, 2.5 gigabytes per second read and write. That will be tested, and you will see the Blackmagic disk speed test in pop-up now or in the full review. So I still do plan on doing a full review because the full review is going to focus more on the 2018 Mac Mini as a whole, whereas this video is just kind of talking about the i3 and my initial impressions on the bone stock base model. Like I said, pretty fast. I managed to get it to drive my 1440p 144 Hz monitor. Was Mac OS actually updating at 144 Hz? Definitely not. I think if I was just at the desktop moving Finder windows around, it was definitely going, and the mouse definitely updates at 144 Hz, but does not keep that frame rate going well. And the UHD 630 graphics are so weak sauce. They are the same integrated graphics that you find in the current 15-inch MacBook Pro, which are actually weaker than the integrated graphics on the 13-inch MacBook Pro. Go figure. So they're not terrible integrated graphics, and you can get by with Mac OS, but if you need GPU-intensive things, you want to do GPU-intensive things, you definitely want to invest in eGPU because, once again, there are no dedicated GPU options with this Mac Mini. As sad as that is, there are no dedicated GPU options at all. But I have a Sonnet eGPU breakaway box on the way, so I'm going to get to test eGPUs in Mac OS for the first time on my MacBook Pro and the Mac Mini. So, yeah. I ran some benchmarks earlier. I'm just going to pull them up real quick. So, I exported a 6-minute and 40-second 4K 30 FPS timeline. It was the unboxing video. The unboxing video initially would not actually export on the Mac Mini. I tweeted out to Quinn from Snazzy Labs, and he said he would check on it for me. Eventually, for whatever reason, what was happening was the Final Cut export would not go past 7%. Don't know what that means, but it would not go past 7%, so it would get to 7%, stop. Final Cut was still responsive. It would just not render any farther. So, for all of these times that I'm about to tell you, or for what you're about to see on the screen, the benchmark graph, all of these were done on the same external 1TB SSD on my MacBook Pro and Mac Mini. It was connected via USB-C, not Thunderbolt. And on the Hackintosh, it was just connected by USB 3. So for the Mac Mini, it took it 9 minutes and 21 seconds to export the 4K timeline to H.264. Took the Hackintosh 7 minutes and 46 seconds. And it took my 2016 MacBook Pro 15-inch 4 minutes and 33 seconds. Despite the CPU on paper being very similar to the one in my Hackintosh in terms of raw performance, the Hackintosh takes the lead, and I truly believe that's due to way better cooling, hyper-threading, and maybe a dedicated graphics card. But the Hackintosh has an NVIDIA card, so I wouldn't count that as a factor. The CPU inside the i3 Mac Mini is a quad-core, but it is not hyper-threaded. So you're getting 4 cores and 4 threads, no more, no less. It also does not turbo boost, but it does adjust the clock speed dynamically, of course, like a traditional Intel CPU. So the max is 3.6 gigahertz, and I think the lowest I've seen it go is about 1.92, but that was not doing anything. So while it was exporting from Final Cut, I was impressed. It did not go below, I want to say 3 or 2.9 gigahertz. Here is the poor Mac Mini finally actually exporting. This is a 6-minute and 40-second 4K timeline with some minimal edits, but I finally got it to export past 7%, and it was hitting that max 3.6 gigahertz, but now it's dipped down, and I saw it spike up to about 80 degrees Celsius. Right now it's about 70, but the Mac Mini, yes, it is starting to get warm, but it's not as ungodly warm as it was last night. It definitely kept up its clock speed, but I could see the temperatures rising still. Nowhere near T-junction, but I still kind of got it to throttle. So last night, amidst all my testing, which involved playing a few games, Terraria and Minecraft, the Mac was very warm to the touch, like abnormally warm. Kind of almost worrisome warm, but not quite. So I checked it out and ran a benchmark, and it benchmarked with some ridiculously low score, and I was like, this is not right. So I'm going to put it to sleep and try the benchmark again in the morning. Lo and behold, the actual benchmark that you are going to get is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 4,500 on the single core and about 13,500 on the multi-core. But if you're running it for long periods of time and it's a little warm in your room or it's starting to thermal throttle, you're going to see that multi-core score drop down to about 8,800, which is weaker than the 13-inch MacBook Air. But again, I don't have a 13-inch MacBook Air, the new one I'm talking about, so I can't test that and see how bad the 13-inch MacBook Air throttles. Either way, though, you're still getting a lot of Mac for $899, and if you're just looking for the cheapest way to get into the macOS ecosystem, you're looking to replace an existing Windows desktop, and you don't do much, then this is still a great computer. It's plug and play, and boom, not really any issues with it besides the Final Cut issue, not wanting to export. That was something to do with it being on the internal drive, I think. I'm not sure. And I also couldn't get the Magic Keyboard 1 to pair to it during setup. Oh well. Other than that, though, it's been rock solid, fast, stable. I gotta say, I'm impressed. But I still think that I'm going to exchange it, return it, and upgrade to an i5 256 gig model. And here's why. 128 gigs is not enough storage, sorry, especially with a T2 chip. Technically, you're not allowed to boot off an external SSD on the T2 chip. There's ways around it, so I would suggest going for a 256 gig storage option. You can always add external storage for storage like pictures, movies, large files, whatever. But if you want to end up booting another OS on it, like I may want to, dual boot Windows and Mac OS, why not? With an eGPU, you've got yourself a small form factor gaming machine. Anyway, so I would recommend going for the 256 gig. The problem is to upgrade to 256 gigs on the i3. It almost puts it at the same price as the i5 anyway, so you're better off getting the i5. Not only that, you're getting a CPU that's, I believe, hyper-threaded, supports Turbo Boost, and is a full 6-core. It is an i5, but still. You're still getting the same 8 gigs of RAM, and you're still getting the same everything else, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and upgrade to that 1099 Mac Mini and run some more benchmarks, see how those compare to the i3, and yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed this update on the Mac Mini. Overall, I'm enjoying it a lot. I think it's a beautiful machine and it's got a lot of potential. And I think I'm going to go ahead and say maybe you should stay away from the i3 unless you're really on a budget and you can't spare the extra $300 to upgrade the SSD. So I thought this video was over. It's definitely not. The more I think about it, the more I think that I don't want to keep the Mac Mini because I'm not a rich tech YouTuber. Sorry to say. I have a limited budget, and the Mac Mini was bought on said limited budget. Doing the math and the funds and everything, I don't think I'm going to be able to keep the Mac Mini, which is sad, but I think when I'm more ready to keep the Mac Mini, I know for sure that it's a great computer that I can count on. However, I will be doing a video on the $250 27-inch iMac I'm getting, so stay tuned for that. And thank you for all the new subscribers following me because of the Mac Mini stuff. I really do appreciate you guys and appreciate the views. I really want to keep doing tech stuff, but the problem is that I don't get the views, so it's hard to find the motivation to do it. So keep viewing my stuff, and I will keep making videos and buying stuff and making my bank and credit card company hate me. Peace out.